I like things my way, my coffee, my schedule, and my treatment. So I talked to my doctor about self-injecting with the VivGuard Hytrulo pre-filled syringe, which contains F-gartigimod alpha and hyaluronidase QVFC. It's injected under your skin, subcutaneously. It means I can inject in my space, on my time. It's my treatment, my way. Visit VivGuardMyWay.com. That's VYVGART MyWay.com. And talk to your doctor about VivGuard Hytrulo, brought to you by argenx.
Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
Back in the studio.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Queen.
Hi.
Been having so much fun co-creating How to Stay Human with you. I just feel like this conversation could not be more important. Like the amount of dialogues that I have throughout the week with people around this idea of humanity is fascinating, because I feel like it rarely comes up in conversation because we don't have that disassociation yet of what it means to be human. I think we just live the experience of being human, but in that process, we can oftentimes forget what it really means to be human. You know what I mean? And I think we're starting to recognize the importance of humanity as we're starting to notice our separation from it, right? The disassociation. Like, it's easy to forget when we're in it. It's really quick to remember when we start stepping outside of it. And I think as we step further into this world of artificiality, technology, and so forth, like, coming back to ourselves is of the utmost importance. And, I think that's part of the reason that we've been really excited to have this conversation around relationships, because it's not just about relationships like the partnership that Tori and I share. It's the relationships that you have with your business partner. It's the relationship that you have with the thing that you're creating. It's the relationship that you have with yourself, right? And how can we create regulated, conscious, and clear relationships? Because we believe that's a huge part of what brings us back to our humanity and what takes us back home. We know, from what I know and what I've learned over time, is that one of the greatest paths to having a strong sense of self is having a strong sense of belonging. And we do that through, again, community and connection and relationships. So, we had an awesome conversation with you all in our last episode about our relationship agreements and the processes and the procedures that we've developed so that we can operationalize and support our relationship like we would a business, And I feel like so many of us, we don't carry that same level of intention and intensity and focus to our relationships because we kind of take them for granted a lot of the time. We take our friendships for granted. We take the relationship with our parents for granted. And of course, as always, even though I hate when it breaks down this way, that sometimes we don't realize the things that we wish we did until we no longer have that relationship anymore.
You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Heyo. And so a lot of this conversation that we're having now is making sure that we can really honor what we have while we have it and make sure that we can love it fully. We can show up for it presently, and we can operate from a place of clarity in the relationships that we have, again, with ourselves, with our businesses, our creations, our partnerships, and of course, our sacred unions as well, like I get to share with this rocket to my right for all of the different reasons. She's blasting off to the moon constantly. And of course, she's just incredibly beautiful. So for lack of a better term, rocket. Our conversation today, we want to get a little bit more tactical, actually. We spent the last conversation talking about what inspired our relationship agreements, the process of creating your own, some of the key categories that we've put in, and really played a lot with these ideas of what it means to, again, be an intentional, conscious partnership with another being or with yourself. And so this conversation, we want to just do a quick deep dive into how you actually put these things into place, because so quickly, just like a business plan for any of the creators that are out there in the world, how many times have you created a business plan that mattered to you for a month? And then it got stuffed deep into some drives online or got stuck deep in some file cabinet somewhere and you never pulled it out again, right? Relationship agreements can oftentimes be the same way, where we get really inspired to create them. But when they're not practiced, when they're not utilized, when there's not systems to check in on them and to measure their effectiveness, honestly, a lot of them can just go to waste, right? And you can fall back into the same patterns that existed before the relationship agreements were even created. So for us today, we're really excited this conversation about how we can actually put them into place into real time. And so there's lots that you can do to sort of trigger bringing an agreement up, to check in on agreement, there's all sorts of questions that you can ask. There's all sorts of, KPIs, or there's all sorts of things that you can do to measure the overall performance of your agreements and whether they put into place. But, for us, I feel like it's been so beautifully fluid. Like we find ourselves relying back on these agreements pretty often. And we, particularly when we're dysregulated or in disconnection with one another, we come back to an agreement we've created. So, for you, baby, especially being like as fluid and as infinite and as open as you are, how do you think of using these agreements? Like, how do you think of implementing them on your end?
I think of it as sort of the rules to the relationship. And I use rules loosely, they're not, but they are here to regulate us. They are the bumpers. So, when I was a kid growing up and we had a bowling alley right next to our house, shout out Leland Lanes, which we were regular visitors to.
Leland Lanes.
And when I was first learning how to bowl, we would have bumpers.
Yeah.
And you've seen kids who go up there without bumpers and they get it and it's all over the place. Our agreements are the things that keep us moving towards the thing that we're moving towards.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think of them as that. And what keeps us, like, we may deviate to the right or to the left, but it keeps us kind of in line towards the things that we're wanting to move towards.
So my question for you then, that's such a great concept to think about, like these as being guardrails in your relationship, right? They help you stay on track and they help you achieve and reach the thing that we spoke about, which is your shared vision. That's the end state that we get to get to. The end. Yes. The strike is we've got the house we desire. We've got the car we desire. We're living our dreams in the way that we've imagined.
Being of service in the world. Right.
And so in that there's obviously an answer to this question, but I'd love to hear your perspective on this, which is how do you know that we're drifting away from the agreements?
We're getting further away from the thing that we want.
That's an easy one. Yeah, easy. For sure.
Yeah. You can feel it.
Yeah.
You can feel it in your body. You can feel it in the tension in the relationship. You can feel it with your dissatisfaction. You're going to notice it.
Yeah. An easy one for me that I've always noticed is how easily and how excitedly am I waking up for my day every day. If I'm struggling to get out of bed, if I'm feeling a certain level of heaviness, if I'm feeling mentally unclear, if I'm not able to get the things done that I desire, oftentimes I come back to, am I in right relationship with myself? And am I in right relationship with Tori? With Tori? Is my house in order?
Is my house in order?
Is my house in order? Is my foundation set and solid enough so that I can achieve the things that I desire? And if it's not, here's the risk that we run. It's not just the short-term loss. It's not just the, I feel mentally foggy and unclear. It's it's the ripple effect that it causes. It's the dominoes that it knocks over. So for example, for me, I know with my life being someone that's high capacity, has a lot of things going on at any moment. If I have, let's say a month, for example, where I'm feeling dysregulated, I'm not feeling in right relationship with Tori and so forth, that causes an effect that now causes me to not be able to show up for my career. It causes me to not show up for my body. And then those things start to spiral. And then that turns into 3 to 6 months of pain that I have to unwind.
We can negative spiral or we can upward spiral, like downward spiral, upward spiral.
Right.
And they can happen quickly.
They can happen really, really quickly, which is why everything in life is delicate. Everything in life deserves ongoing intention. And one of the greatest things that one of my dear friends shared with me is that you reach a point in your life where you're so deeply committed to your dreams that you're willing to say, I am no longer going to take any days off. I'm no longer going to take a day off from being my best self. I am no longer going to take a day off from pursuing the things I care about most. And so that is why these guardrails are so important, because they allow us to stay on track for the things that we really, really desire. And frankly, we don't have enough days in this life to not be doing the things that we care the most about. So that's the invitation here. And I'd love to talk about how we actually come back into alignment. So, I think the biggest one for us, and I'd really love to explore this with you because we just tried it yet. We just put this in place yesterday, is what we've called like the sacred pause before, right? Or the spaciousness. Like, talk to me about spaciousness, because you are the queen of at least seeking that out.
Yeah. I mean, when there is a lack of spaciousness, meaning I'm rushed to make a decision, I'm rushed to, or forced to do something before I feel ready, I don't make the best decisions from that place. I'm making them from a reactive place or a scared place or a scarce place, because I'm feeling the tension of needing to collapse a lot into a little. So spaciousness allows for us to take the time or the space that we need to make decisions from a clear place and
Yes.
not a rushed place.
Yes. And to me, that is the cornerstone of being able to use these agreements effectively. Because like we shared before, these agreements only matter to the extent that you're willing to practice them and to the extent that you're regulated enough to be able to recognize that they should be used. And so it comes back to regulation first, which is kind of stage one of our relationship agreements. And so an easy way to begin the process of implementing your agreements is to pause before the action, right? It's to start to notice when you're not feeling fully regulated, fully in right relationship, etc., and to ask yourself, is this a good time for this? Should this be happening right now? Can we pause for a moment? I'm not feeling regulated. That's a phrase that I use often with Tori, where I'll share with her. And sometimes it's hard as a man, particularly as a high capacity man who's holding it all together and supporting her. There's sometimes a fear that comes up to me that if I go to her and say, hey, Tori, hey, baby, I feel dysregulated. There's a fear that sometimes comes up in me that she will think he can't hold it down and he can't create safety for us anymore. And so this is another really important part of the relationship that we talked about. It's mutually balanced growth. So Tori sometimes will give me a signal, whether it's direct or indirect, of like, it's okay for you not to create the safety right now.
To not have it all together.
Yeah, I got you on this time.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, what is that? Talk about one of the most eye-opening things for a man is for your partner to say, like, I'm going to hold it down for a moment. It does not mean to me that I am insignificant. It does not mean to me that I am no longer a man. It does not mean to me that I can't create the safety and hold it down anymore. It means that I don't have to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. Mm-hmm. And no one, even the strongest, most capable of men, beings, etc., men, women, beings, etc., cannot do that.
If you don't feel comfortable or safe falling apart with your partner, there is room to grow in the aspect of creating a safe environment.
Yeah.
I saw a recent Instagram reel or something by a friend of ours, Sam, who was talking really honestly about a moment in his marriage recently where he shared something mm-hmm. and his wife he ended up just kind of collapsing and like just melting and being a mess. And the way in which she held it down and like let that happen. And for women, you got to check yourself. Because a lot of time we say, we want our man to be vulnerable. We want our man to be honest with us. We want our man to access his emotions. But if the moment he does that, you shame him for it, or you think, oh my gosh, like he doesn't have it together all of a sudden.
Right.
Is the reason why men don't share in the first place.
Exactly.
Right? And so, again, this is coming back to how to stay human. It is loving your partner's humanity.
Yep.
And that's really, really important, I think, is creating that space. So just ask yourself, do I feel safe to fall apart?
Yeah.
Or do I feel like I always have to manage keeping it together?
Right. And frankly, for the men that are in right relationship with the women in their lives and are surrounding themselves with women that promote and support them and love them and allow them to express themselves and so forth. Here's another beautiful thing that I've learned. If the end desire that we want as a man is to be attractive and appealing and sexy and so forth to a woman or to our partner, whoever the person we're in relationship with is, fun fact, emotional vulnerability and transparency is sexy. Agreed?
Amen.
It's so incredibly attractive to Tori when I share my heart.
It makes me trust you more.
Yes.
It's sexy because it creates safety, because I know you're not a robot. Mm-hmm. I know you're not made of steel. I know, despite the fact that you can hold and produce so much, there are limits to your capacity. And so if you're always putting on a smile and acting like you've got it together in the moments you're fraying and fractured, I lose trust with you.
I never forget with a previous partner that I had when I was much earlier in this journey than where I am with this goddess now. A previous partner I was very, very closed emotionally. right? I had a really hard time expressing my emotions. I was the man of steel that Tori was just mentioning. And, you know, my previous partner would share with me a lot. She was like, I'm not really feeling you, you know? And she would poke and she would prod at me to try to get it to come out until I would explode, right? She'd hit every single wound and trigger and button, and I would literally explode in a state of rage and anger and frustration. And she'd be like, this is great.
Now I'm saying something.
And ironically, that was the thing that actually at times would bring us closer together. Now, of course, I was so incredibly dysregulated in those moments, but I'd be looking at her and I'd be so incredibly confused. I'm like, why are you not reacting to this? Why are you not upset with this? And it was because she finally felt something with me. Right. And so my invitation for all of us, but particularly for men, because we live in a society that often tells us to be emotionally guarded, is like, try opening your heart. Try it. And it doesn't have to be big. Just let them in a little bit and actually watch yourself feel more honored, loved, respected, right? Acknowledged, affirmed, and appreciated while you're in what would otherwise be perceived as an non-masculine state. So I say this to say that a big part of the journey of actually implementing these agreements is that pause, is that willingness to say, I'm dysregulated, is that willingness to be emotionally vulnerable and just stop for a moment, because oftentimes where most challenges exist in a relationship is in the reactivity. And we can be proactive by pausing, the proactive pause, trademarking it now, and then saying, let's actually use our agreements. Let's use the agreements to interrupt the pattern that we might often fall back into. And so it can be used in real time in that way. And you can literally pull up a copy of your agreements and you can go down to the section of, let's say, regulation. If you're not feeling regulated, you can say, what are the steps that we should be taking right now? What are the things that we've agreed on? Or if we're feeling out of alignment with the things that we're doing, with the things that I'm creating and she's creating, we go back to our shared vision section and say, are we aligned in the things that we've committed to?
It's a standard operating procedure.
Yes.
If you want to take it to the business perspective of like, okay, if something's not working, we're in the red zone, there's tension, there's conflict, there's something we don't like. Okay, pause. Something's breaking down. Yeah. Think about it in the business. If one of your systems or one of the things that you need to be operating is breaking down, you go back to the manual.
Yeah.
And figure out what you need to do. Sometimes you need a hard reset.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to reboot that router, right? That's a pause. That's a go regulate moment. But like, this is the manual for what do you do in the moments that it's breaking down.
Yeah, it's really, really, really well said. Yeah. And that's the real time moment. That's the moment when it's actually happening. There's also times in your relationship where it appears that everything is going pretty well, and it might be. But what I'll say is that it's never perfect. And that's why we also love integrating regular check-ins and opportunities to go back and reflect on the areas of our agreements that we're performing well in and that we're not performing well in. And what I'll say is it doesn't need to be like so rigid where it's like, let's go through every agreement, like give me a score of a 1 to 10 on this. It's more so what it evolves to over time is it evolves to a very fluid conversation of where we're at. Tori and I don't necessarily sit down every single Friday at 2 p.m. and say, are you doing good in these things, and keep some scorecard, because that would feel too rigid and it wouldn't feel real to us. For us, it's a really open and fluid conversation. But I will say this, it started with more intentional check-ins
on Sundays.
It started with more intentional questions or intentional connections and questions on Sundays. We still do have dedicated containers throughout the week, but one of the things that Tori appreciates the most is she wants things to feel as natural as possible. And so we try to create as much space for that too. Now, that being said, when we do have opportunities to dig a little bit deeper and have times to reflect, I think there are some very specific questions that you can start to integrate into your language Bible in your partnership to be able to check in on the agreements without it being as rigid as just, 1 through 10, or as being as simple as yes or no. Right? There's a little bit more nuance to it. So I'd love to share for an opportunity here I'd love to use this as an opportunity to share some of the questions that we've ran through before in some of our weekly and monthly conversations. And soon we'll expand these out to be quarterly and annual. We will also share these questions on our Instagram. Tori may even be kind enough to put it up on our How to Stay Human Substack, because I think there's some really, really good stuff in here. So that being said, I want to come back to the categories that we typically like to look at. And these are all tied back to our agreements. So we created some questions that kind of sit underneath our agreement categories. So connection and appreciation, really big one. Talked a lot about that in the previous episode. Emotional and relational awareness. We talked a lot about emotional capacity in our previous episode. Support and partnership, of course, around shared vision and whatnot. Play, polarity, and passion. We spent some time talking about polarity and where that fits in. We didn't spend a lot of time talking about fun yet, though, and there'll be another episode for that at some point for sure. And then, of course, vision and intentions, which is a big one. So, and some of these questions I'll share were also collected from people that I really care about in my life. And what I'll say is that before I dive into a few of these, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on these too, and what questions in particular have spurred the most excitement for you. But what I'll share is that the relationships are absolutely not designed to be done alone. A lot of what Tori and I integrate into our relationship today has been a product of the incredible mentors and teachers and friends and guides that we've had into our life, which have led us to a point where we can love each other more deeply and ask each other more intentional questions. So in short, seek out your reference points. But one of the big questions that I love that a friend shared with me that we've shared with each other before is, what did I do that you loved this week? And for me, the reason that's such a big one is because I'll say this on behalf of most men, because I think a lot of men can relate to this next comment, is that specific and intentional acknowledgement and affirmation goes a long way for us. Saying something to the effect of, you're doing great, doesn't really land because it doesn't show us any progress. When it's something more along the lines of, say, for example, I want to get in the gym 3 times during the week. Let's just say that's what the intention is. And Tori comes back to me and says, you're working out hard. That's awesome. Doesn't land. But if she says, I saw that you got in the gym 3 times this week. That was really great. I'm like, oh, I'm being noticed for the things that I'm progressing in. That's a way that that's a way when I asked to Tori, what did I do that you loved this week? And she comes back and says, I saw that you got in the gym 3 times this week. That's a beautiful signal and affirmation to me. So it's really big. Now I want to flip it to the other side. And this is a question that we've danced around a little bit too, which I think is a really, really good one, which is, how could I have loved you better this week? I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question to ask. Basically, what this is saying is like, were there any opportunities where I missed an opportunity to love you or meet a need or show up, right? In a way that feels not like an interrogation or a big judgment, but it says like, I'm voluntarily asking, where did I miss the mark this week? And how can I be aware of that so I can look for those opportunities coming up? Yeah.
And it really dovetails super nicely into this next question. This is one that Tori and I have played with a lot, because this next question does not come up as frequently as you would expect. It comes up when there are really grand scenarios, but when there's the little things that build up during the week, this question, the answer to this question can sometimes get buried, which is, do you have any ouchies?
Yeah.
That we need to presence.
Yeah, because there are some times where there'll be like a little, that didn't feel great.
Yeah. But it's not enough to like slow the momentum down, and it doesn't need to come up right then and there.
Yeah. But it's like a little ouchie. Or it's like yes, last night I did I during the day while he was gone, I did the sheets, and I thought I'd gotten all the sheets and like put them in this pile and put them in the wash. And I forgot to wash Kyle's pillowcases. And so when we're at the end of the day, we're putting on all the sheets, and he's like, did you wash my pillowcases? And I was like, oh no, I forgot. And so he didn't say this, but I could tell. I was like, oh, he feels like maybe left out or forgotten or not important, or like I didn't take the time to like go all the way through, complete the cycle fully. And when your partner's the one that's left out, or they get the short end of the stick, that can kind of hurt. Yep. You know what I mean? So that's an example. He didn't bring that up, but like I kind of clocked that in my own mind as like something to notice.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think that last point that Tori just made is really important, which is I would actually encourage, particularly as it relates to things like little wins or maybe little ouchies, write them down. Keep a running log of them, because what'll end up happening is that you'll forget about them, but internally you'll remember them. Right. And they build up over time, and they can create resentment with the other person. Right. It's really important to be able to acknowledge the things that you see in the other person that you're proud of, and that also the other person does that may have hurt you. Because again, they build up resentment. And number 2, we learn the most from the most specific and directed feedback. It's one thing to say, Tori, you're making me sad. It's another thing to say, Tori, this specific thing you did, like for example, not taking my pillowcases off, made me feel sad. right? That's specific and directed feedback where Tori can say, cool, I got that. That's something I can learn from. Me just saying to Tori, like, I feel sad because of you is vague, it's unclear, and it doesn't help to really support the relationship. So it's just keep a running log. And then when you have time to connect every week, like we set aside time every week to connect, you can explore, you can pull up that list and say, hey, there's a couple things that I wanted to get through. And the biggest thing there is that you can approach things like ouchies from a grounded and regulated state so that you can have a clear and competent conversation around it versus just being like super dysregulated in the moment and it doesn't really get the message across or actually help to support the relationship. So that's a big one for us. I love that question. I think it's a lot of fun to play with that one. One that I've liked a lot too, and we bring this one up a lot as we think about partnership, is what support do you need from me in the coming days? Right? We both probably share that with you. We probably share that question in fact with each other like every single day.
Yeah, but specifically like on Sundays when we're like getting ready for the week ahead, typically towards the end of the like we're having dinner or getting ready for bed, we're talking about our upcoming weeks. What does your week look like and how can I support you? Yeah,
exactly. And I think here's the big thing is that our initial reaction to that question, Tori's and mine, I've also seen this with others, is I'm good. I got this. I would encourage you to pause on that question and genuinely ask yourself, where do you need support? It might be in areas that you're not familiar or used to asking for support on, but what could it free you up to be able to do? And what we try to do with each other is we try to lean into each other's strengths. If Tori knows that I'm really great at something that she would otherwise be doing on her own, but could use support in, she'll go and throw that thing to me. It might take me of half the time it would take her, but it frees up 100% of the capacity that she would otherwise dedicate to it. And vice versa. I like to share things with her that she can support me with that she's really strong with. Right. And so it's about leaning into the other partner's strengths. And in like the words of a business owner, it's about maximizing the efficiency of the partnership. Right. It's about leveraging our time most effectively, right, by leaning into the strengths of the other person. So it's not just about asking the other person what support they need. It's also about clearly stating the support that you need and being willing to ask for support for yourself from the partner. Simply put, you don't need to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, right? Yeah. Another fun one that's really cool to play with too, and we haven't had a chance to get into this much, although I do think that there's another episode that's coming around fun, right? And one thing that, and frankly, Tori and I probably have some work to do here too. This is an area that we spent a lot of time in early in our relationship, and we've been so locked into like adult mode now over the last several months that like I want to invite in more fun and play, right? And so a fun question that we can now explore is like, what would be fun for you this week? What's something fun that we can do? What's something that's going to allow you to experience more play this week?
Yeah, I'm going through a practice. It's actually a 12-week program called The Artist's Way. And it's something I've recently committed to for my own, journey and self-expression around creativity. And a big piece of the Artist's Way is these like weekly what they call an artist date. Yeah. But it's essentially an opportunity to let your inner child play. And that I've like one day you came home and I was like coloring books.
Oh, is that what that was for?
Yeah. But it's like,
that's awesome.
Like really just create like having a set aside time where you're not adulting. You're just letting yourself enjoy for the sake of enjoyment. I don't think we realize how much that fills our cup.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree.
Life can be heavy and serious. And often.
And it can get there really quickly. Yeah. I mean, before you know it, like, especially when you're calling in the life that you desire, it can become an obligation to feel like to get there. And like one of the greatest,
like you're pushing a boulder up a mountain.
Yeah. It's like you shared something with me recently. I'm trying to remember the exact phrasing that you use, but basically that like in the like, you don't want to essentially like create a life that you hate in the process of just trying to create a life of your dreams
that you love, yeah,
right? Or a process of trying to create a life that you love, right? The journey is supposed to be fun too, and so
or it gets to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be. I mean, life is supposed to be fun. This is all a gift, right?
It's a game.
Yeah,
it's a big fat game,
and it's a gift to be able to do this all. We're so incredibly fortunate across the board. All humans are fortunate in a lot of ways. Just to be able to live is a blessing in and of itself. And so for Tori and I, we really, I think a big focus of ours is like, and this is an ongoing focus, is like, How can we laugh more? How can we play more? How can we have more fun? How can we create joy in every moment? How can we sing in the showers? How can we, fool around? How can we act like a kid from time to time? Like, what are the things that we can do that create a little bit of levity in the relationship? Because otherwise you can easily just get stuck in the mud, and that's not where we want to be. And of course, as a result of freeing yourself through that, you then can can not only dream bigger, but support those dreams more freely and from a place of greater energy. And so when we think about co-creative visions, a big thing that we're really key on with each other also is, kind of asking this question of like, not just how can I support you in terms of, like running errands for you or so forth, but also like, how can we partner together in the creations that we're in? Right. For example, like Tori is running, she's in the process of launching this incredible book, which will be coming out soon. She's in the midst of branding and remarketing. I'm in the midst of going through some reevaluations with my finance and my health and so forth. And so we've gotten to come together, and she's gotten to say like, hey, I want to do this new website. Right. Can you support me with this? What are some things that you've learned? What are some people that you've connected with? I've gotten to go to her with the same thing on the financial side. And we've gotten to kind of swap contacts, support, wisdom, et cetera, that we've learned over the years out of this desire to have a co-created vision and to have, a shared future together. And so that's a question that you can also get to explore with your partner is like, in the things that you're creating in your life, how can I show up for you?
Yeah, this is the thing I'm working on and I'd love help with.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And not having your ego be so big to say that I don't need any help, right? First of all, you do. And second of all,
good luck with that.
And second of all, the other piece too is like, I would invite us all in to welcoming in people into our lives that we admire, right? When Tori came into my world, long before, frankly, we were even together in our romantic partnership, I admired and respected her. That was a critical foundation of our partnership. I don't want to be with someone that I see as lesser than. And I don't want to be with someone that isn't able to challenge me and bring me forward, right? And so in being with Tori from the very beginning, I was like, I admire you. I respect you. I see you. I want your input and insight. I want your contacts and connections. I want to learn from you. I want to grow beside you. Like, we want to be in a partnership that feels equal and balanced. Right. And by doing that, then when we come to things like our co-created and shared vision, it's a lot easier to say, this is how you can support me. And I want your support. Yeah. Right. And also, as a PSA there too, I think it's an important asterisk to add in. No one is lesser than you, but people are definitely at different stages than you. And
For sure. Yeah. In different seasons.
And different seasons. And then I think the encouragement there is in your partnership, whether it be friendship, business, romantic partnership, and so forth, to find someone who's stepping into life together at the same pace.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really, really important. So, these questions are just a few that you can start to explore in your weekly meetings with your partner and your monthly meetings with your partner. There's so much more that I would encourage you to explore as well. I think the big ones that I'm going to invite in to leave open-ended are really just asking yourself around the agreements, where are your agreements being honored and where are they not being honored? Mm-hmm. Where are you missing the mark or misaligning with your agreements? And then also as a result of that, what am I going to take responsibility for improving going forward? And that's something that Tori and I explore a lot, which is, I like to leave conversations that we have, particularly as we're implementing our agreements, by being able to say, what's something that we took away from this? And what's something that we're going to implement as a result of this conversation?
Yeah, on both sides. So like he shares, this is what I learned, and this is where I can show up better, and this is what I'm going to do going forward, and vice versa. That needs to be reciprocal. Not just one person taking accountability or responsibility. It's both of you saying, this is where I'm growing and learning.
Yeah. And that comes back to, what we shared in our previous episode, this idea of like mutually shared growth, where we're moving along this life together. We are learning together. Neither of us is perfect. And so that's just one that I think is really important, really, really important to end every conversation with, which is, here's what I've learned. Here's what I'm integrating. It's a signal of respect, and it's also a signal of saying like, I hear and receive what you're sharing. So as I had mentioned, there's so much more that you can explore as you think about the ways that you can implement and hold yourself accountable. We just shared a couple of tidbits today of questions that you can ask that can help to bring you back home. But look, just like your relationship agreements are completely unique to you, the questions and the conversations and the rituals and the processes to be able to check in and support them are also completely unique to you. And I'll say this as we move to sort of close today is like, how do you know it's working? Like, how do you know that your relationship agreements are actually effective?
I think a couple things. There feels like, the conversations that you're having feel balanced.
Yep.
I feel like when there is conflict, because there is, that you're coming back to a regulated or repaired place more quickly. Like you're not, the time in which you're spending in dysregulation or disconnection is not spanning over the course of days or weeks.
Yeah.
You're able to come back into that connection and repair it more quickly. Yeah, like you're feeling enthusiastic and fueled by the relationship versus feeling drained and depleted.
Yeah.
And just that, like, at least for me, that you don't feel isolated and alone in your partnership, that you feel like you have a teammate and somebody who's in it with you as you navigate the different points in the journey.
All I'll say is that, the effect there's a lot of, I've seen so many different people approach the measuring their effect, like the quote unquote effectiveness of their agreements in different ways. Some people literally have scorecards and ways of like quantifying it. For me, it's just a question of like, do we feel connected or do we feel disconnected? Do I feel open or do I not feel open? Do we feel on or do we feel off? These are simple things that we can tune into in our partnership that are very, very clear. And if the connection is broken, it's probably because one of the agreements is not being honored, whether it's an agreement that you have with yourself or an agreement that you have with the partnership. And so the invitation there is, when you're feeling off, when the relationship doesn't feel open, instead of blaming, if this is because of you acting this way, this is because of you acting this way, you broke this, you didn't do this, it's explore it further. It's to choose curiosity instead of blaming. It's to say, why did this happen? What's happening in your life to cause this? How can I support you in this thing that's causing you to feel dysregulated, which is causing you to break this agreement, which is causing us to feel disconnected? And that is partnership. It's saying we're going to lock arms and go into the corners of our life together versus say, you go figure it out. I'm going to sit over here and wait for you. And that's how we can choose these agreements lovingly. That's how we can choose each other over and over and over and over again. Yeah. So I'll say this as we think about putting these relationships into place going forward in our lives, the place that I'd always encourage y'all to start with is start with the things that mean the most to you. What are the things that mean the most to you in terms of your values, in terms of your virtues, in terms of how you love, in terms of how you receive love? Start with that and then ask yourself the opposite. What are the things that, what happened, or how do I feel when I don't feel loved? How do I feel when I'm closed?
Or how do I not want to feel?
Or how do I not want to feel? Exactly. So we start with the positive. We look at the negative and we say, what have I done before that allows me to move from closed to open, to not having my needs met, to having my needs met, to not being seen, to having my values recognized. In between there is the seed of your agreement. And all I'll say is that this is a process that is a process. It's not meant to be, I meet someone and within a day, I've got all my agreements sketched out. It's build this slowly and start with yourself and what your needs are. Allow them to start with their selves and move on to what their needs are. Lay those on top of each other so that you know how to support them in their needs and how they can support you in your needs. Collectively, what you're going to find as a result of combining those together is you're going to find what your relationships needs are. That's exactly the process that Tori and I took. And it continues to evolve. It continues to grow over time because at the end of the day, this is an ongoing practice. You'll never fully arrive. You are just constantly on this path together.
Yeah. And I'll say, for those of you that don't know, I write a weekly, sometimes more than once a week Substack. So the How to Say Human Substack, you can go to torigordon.substack.com. And what we're going to do is make our relationship agreements and some of these check-in questions into formats that you can take home with you and you can apply. So if you are a paid subscriber on the Substack, you will get access to exactly what we use, and you can use this and apply it in your life. And we hope that you do.
Yeah. And please share the way that you're integrating your agreements into your life. Share the questions that you're asking. It's a really exciting and important conversation, especially as we think about creating a world that's connected and that's in right relationship with each other. So as per always, thank you for continuing to show up for your life. Thank you for the conscious relationships that you have. Thank you for the way that you deeply care about yourself and humanity. We see you for that. And we're so excited to continue this conversation with you.
I like things my way, my coffee, my schedule, and my treatment. So I talked to my doctor about self-injecting with the VivGuard Hytrulo prefilled syringe, which contains F-gartigimide alpha and hyaluronidase QVFC. It's injected under your skin, subcutaneously. It means I can inject in my space, on my time. It's my treatment, my way. Visit VivGuardMyWay.com. That's VYVGART myway.com. And talk to your doctor about VivGuard Hytrulo, brought to you by argenx.